I mean, I think about my mom been drawing on her pension for decades now. Is it that way? I mean,
CD Financial, where health meets wealth.
welcome back, everybody, to the CD Financial Podcast. CD Financial, where health meets wealth. I'm Marc C, your host. The man across from me is Chuck D, the man with the plan. Chuck, how are you?
Dude, strong.
Happy to hear it.
Strong.
Stronger than ever. I'm happy to hear that. That makes me happy. How are things over there in Southern Cal?
Hey, listen, this morning I took that lacrosse ball and I rolled on my back. And I took some time today. It wasn't a quickie. You know, I have 5 minutes each side. On the weekend, I might actually, because I'm not going to see my masseuse, I might do 20 minutes each side and then work them hips on the side. So looking forward to it. I'm feeling good. Feeling loose. Right? I'm trying to loosen out.
Get up. Loosen it up, man. I'm glad you're loose, stretched out, ready to roll. So let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. So what are we going to be discussing today?
Why federal employees shouldn't rely solely on their pension.
All right. So I know most federal employees have a modest pension, right? But
yeah,
I mean, honestly, go ahead.
Go ahead. I would say modest, Marcus, because it's still a pension, but nothing like the old CSRS pension, the CSRS pension, that civil servant retirement system. That's if you started before 1984.
So let's start there, because in my mind, when I think of a federal employee with a pension, it's something solid, right? They're federal employees. They got the government backing. Why shouldn't I think that, or why shouldn't I believe that it's a solid pension?
What do you mean by solid? Could you be more specific?
Okay, so by solid, and this is what I mean, will they be able to rely on it? I mean, I think of something solid as providing a foundation, right? Something that you can always rely on and it won't go away. I mean, I think about my mom been drawing on her pension for decades now. Is it that way? I mean,
okay, so yeah, you're right. Solid, it will endure and it'll last, but at what amount?
Okay, so it'll endure, and what do you mean?
You mean at what amount? Yeah. The old pension, Marcus, was a substantial bit more, for good reason. They had what was called a non-covered pension.
Okay, so now, you're losing me a little bit. Non-covered pension. Does that mean they didn't pay into Social Security?
That's exactly what it means. That's why they call it non-covered. CSRS didn't pay into that. The government said, well, back in the 80s, they were underfunded with Social Security. In the 80s. We're talking a long time ago.
I wasn't even born
35 years ago. You're right? Yeah. It's the old CSRS pension was not covered by Social Security, so it had to be much larger. So, for instance, somebody who had 30 years of service, federal service, then they would get like 30%. They would get 56% of their high three. Now, if they hit 40 years, 42 years to be exact, actually 41 years and 11 months, because some people will say, hey, Charles, call it like it is. 80% of their high three average salary. So sometimes CSRS people, and I know what you're thinking, you're saying, whoa, 40 years of government service? Yeah, if they worked 41 years and they had 11 months of sick leave, that was it, 80%. They would cap out. Actually, at 41 years, 11 months of service, they could add their sick leave and it would increase it. But for all intent and purpose, right, 42 years of service, they get 80%. They might actually make as much take-home pay as much as they did while working.
So let me ask you this then. Is there any concerns with relying on that solely? I mean, should they be concerned about relying solely on a federal pension?
Well, the biggest concern is one word: INFLATION.
I didn't study for the quiz. I didn't know there'd be spelling today. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Inflation, my brother. Inflation is the enemy. They might seem fine, your income right now, but if you live a long time, and some people are thinking, I might live 20, even 30 years in retirement, right? If you're out at 60, you live to 90, your money might lose its purchasing power. I've known people that have straight stagnant pensions. I think of some Boeing execs with $6, $7, $8,000 monthly pensions that seem great, but 20 years from now, that $8,000 might feel more like $4,000.
Why half? Why you say it like that?
If you look at the rate of inflation, right? And let me take, you know what, Marcus? I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to take my HP calculator.
Thank you for not making me do math.
I'm going to do that 8,000, right? Or let's do it this way. 4,000 is a present value. And let's do 3.35 as the real inflation on wages, for instance. And then let's do 20 as the number of years. What's the future value? 7731. $7,731. Hey, yeah, 20 years, $8,000, $4,000. Yeah, and so that's why I do that. Let's talk about $20 that I found in my jean pocket when I was a kid. How's that sound? When I was driving, though, I must have been a senior in high school because I found that $20 and I had a Buick Skylark. You know, my dad, we had like 4 cars in the family and we all would share them. I wanted my own. I wanted to be the guy that had his own car. I bought it with my own money. The guy with 2 thumbs, Marcus. This guy. So I bought that Buick Skylark. I found $20. Now my wife talks about respecting money and she says, your wallet is always straight. She said, you've always got your presidents and from the least denomination to the highest, and they're always vertical and looking
from
at
George
me,
to Ben.
Right?
Is that what you do from George to Ben?
Yeah, that's right. George to the Benjis. So anyway, she said that shows that you respect money. I forget. This was years ago. She told me this. But I found this $20 and I'm like, whoa, I don't misplace money. $20 in my jeans, right? I went and filled up that Buick Skylark with a full tank of gas. And I went to King's Family Restaurants, burger and fries, Coca-Cola too, back when I drank soda. We call them pop back in Pittsburgh. Back when I drank burger, fries, and a pop. And I could tip the waitress all for $20. Don't forget, I filled up my Buick with a full tank of gas.
That's that old big tank, right? With the V8 on that Buick.
Yeah, 350. Didn't have a 4-barrel. My brother-in-law Steve had an Olds Omega that had a 4-barrel V8. That thing could haul out. Anyway, I digress. What does $20 get you now? What does $20 get you now? Can you fill up your car with gas?
No. I'm thinking right now a burger, fries, and maybe a tip. I think you're going to walk to and fro the cafe. Let's just say that.
I don't know how In-N-Out is holding their prices down. Honestly, out here, yeah. But when you go to Five Guys, forget it. You could drop down some serious coin. You're in for nearly $20.
Each one of those guys wants his money. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, that's right. He's one of those 5 guys.
So let's get back a little bit to the inflation. Then let's get back to what we were talking about, because you're discussing inflation with the pension. So I thought that the FERS Fed pension has a COLA and it increases annually, doesn't it?
You are correct, sir. It does. But a 2.2, actually, that was let's talk about averages. 2%. Until recently, where the inflationary, environment's much higher, it's been 1.93. So let's talk about 2% COLA. Do you think, Marcus, that's really going to pace inflation at 2%?
No, I hadn't really thought of it that way. So why is this then such a big concern?
If you start to examine the price of food, we've talked about, I would say King's Family Restaurant. I don't know if they still exist, but it's like a polished up Denny's, let's say, right? And utilities. And you realize quickly that we're not in a 2 to 3% inflationary environment. We need things that truly stay pace with inflation. I mean, I got solar panels installed, Sunrun, and I thought my power bill issues were a thing of the past. No, they were not. They were not. Instead, we have 2 EV cars, and one's a truck. And then my Jude, my son's got he's got a partial plug-in 2016 Audi. Yeah, and it's got a battery pack in the back. And I was like, okay, we could start charging daylight hours because we're generating power from the sun. No, that was peak hours. So, man, oh man, the cost of everything is up. That package of shrimp, and I know how you and Sharon, you had us, eating the shell of the shrimp too. I love that, right? All those nutrients in it. We'll talk about that at the end. So, because CD Financial is where health
Meets well.
meets wealth.
Correct.
So, I was buying on the regular the wild caught shrimp from Costco. And it was, you want to guess how much that was?
It's got to be what, about $45, $50, maybe? I don't know, maybe a little less.
Negative. No. You're going back to, because I already told you that's what's up with that. You're ruining my punchline now, dog. It was 29 to 32 bucks consistently. Yeah. Then it disappeared for like 4 months. And I finally found it again 2 weeks ago. And now guess how much
Now
it was.
you're paying $50, aren't you?
Well, 47 bucks. So I'm like, what? Wow. What is 15 divided by 32? That's like 47% price increase. Now that's a drastic illustration about the increase of certain goods. But between utilities and food, it's gone up a whole lot. And I don't know about you, Marcus, but this guy, he likes to have at least a couple square meals a day. Sometimes even 3 when I'm feeling really rich.
I've developed the same nasty habit. I expect to eat daily, usually multiple times. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've got a federal pension with 25 years of service and you're getting 25% of your high 3, you got another 75% of your income to make up, right? And guess what? Your Social Security, it'll be limited in the same manner. Now, it goes up a little higher on the COLAs annually than your federal pension because that's more of a political bomb. So they don't want to jack with everybody. And so they give them a little more Social Security COLA because those folks also are the big voters. But those are your 2 pensions. You got your federal pension and you've got your Social Security pension. And those guys are not going to stay pace with the true cost of goods. They may diminish the purchasing power over time. That purchasing power may diminish.
So that reminds me, you're saying all this, it reminds me of when I was younger, right? When I was in my late teens and early 20s, I ate like a horse. I mean, you would go to all you can eat buffets just because it was just more cost effective, right? It's the only way to keep me full. I never put on a pound, Charles. I could eat all I wanted. I too don't drink soda anymore, but back then I'd chug down some Coke along with it, some cookies, and never gained an ounce because at that time my metabolism was great. All I had to do was go play ball for a couple of hours and I was good to do that. If I tried to do that now, you'd be rolling me everywhere. There's no way. My metabolism just can't keep up. And it reminds me of the old adage, right? They say you can't outrun a bad diet. And that's kind of like what we're dealing with here, right? We're trying to keep pace with something that you just won't be able to based on this pension. At least that's how I'm getting it.
Yeah, I hear you too. And guess what? If you're married and you pass away, your spouse is only going to get half that pension at most. If you elected for them to get that, they're only going to get half. And that could put them in a big bind too, right? This is the missus we're talking about, or maybe the mister. But they may have something to say about it, right? And they might want to fill in these gaps too. So
then getting back to filling in those gaps and fighting our enemy, inflation, how do we combat that?
That is where retirement savings, like your TSP, your 401k, your IRAs, maybe your stock trading accounts, maybe your spouse works at a school district, 403B, or a hospital, or another government agency like 457. And they may, you could have ESOPs. They might have a better chance of pacing or even outpacing inflation over time.
Why is that?
Well, if you're talking about, let's talk about it. Most folks, when they have a TSP or 401k, they're talking about usually at least some of their money, if not a lot of it, could be in stocks or stock funds. And they typically will grow over time to a point if left alone. Now we know that the market goes up and down, right? But typically the market goes up and down like this. So over time, starts here but ends up over here, right? So over time, it might go like this. Yeah, it's going to zigzag along the way. But if left alone, the growth could far surpass inflation. Since inflation runs up, so does the value of goods and replacing those assets inside of a company.
Okay, so what do you mean by replacing assets?
So if I'm say, let's say I'm Mickey D's, right? If I'm Mickey D's, and because we were talking about burgers and fries, Mickey D's might own warehouses. They might own distribution centers. They might even own, who knows, the rights with certain contracts with the soda pop companies and bottling and all this real estate and trucks and bottling and contracts. When the value of the dollar gets eroded, then the price to replace these things rises up and up and up. And so to replace those things, like the semis, like the trucking, like the warehousing, like the restaurants, those things are real, tangible assets, and the cost to get them. And even the things that aren't tangible, but the contracts, the contractual obligations from the different vendors, those things are worth something. And the price of those goods really jumps up.
Well, I mean, I guess that's what we'd hope for, right? We'd hope it increased. The value should go up.
Yes, and it certainly does. And more often than not, over time, it will do that. These hard assets, real estate, you think about Coca-Cola, they have bottling, they may have, the contracts with sugarcane fields and those kind of things. You can get your head around it, right? Around those kind of goods. They will go up in value if given time.
Yeah. But so the value of the stock rises too, right?
Absolutely, because the cost to replace these things over time requires more and more dollars. Replacement costs are extremely high. So the TSP comes in as an invaluable asset or an IRA if you self-direct your TSP. Same thing from a 401k to IRAs. It's an inflation hedge to allow a larger amount to live on as your pensions become ever so slowly. Possibly they become less and less valuable over time.
So then the $1 million question, Chuck D, what funds or stocks should I be buying to hedge against inflation, my enemy?
Whoa, wait, Marcus. That is where you need personalized, tailored advice. Why is that? Because depending on your personal circumstances, your own situation, your debt obligation, what you're trying to accomplish. And some of you might be fortunate enough to sit there and think, I don't even need my retirement savings, Chuck D. I don't need to touch it. And others are saying, you know what? We need to have something. We're a little confused about that. We know how much our Social Security is going to be. We're a little confused even about the sequence there, but we know how much our federal pension is. But how are we going to create retirement income, and how are we going to create it monthly, a retirement income plan? And bigger question, will it last a lifetime? And those are concerns that we have. Well, if you've got those concerns, then go ahead and click on that link and you'll have access for a complimentary phone call where you get to ask the questions that concern you. What concerns do you have?
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. So good financial stuff today, and not relying right solely on a federal pension. We appreciate that. What about a health tip? You got a health tip for us today?
Yeah, let's aim, Marcus. Yeah. Let's go back to that shrimp thing.
Now I'm hungry.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Was it you that showed me just grilled shrimp? Yeah, just grill them. So so I buy wild caught. I'm trying to catch myself. I don't buy farm
I don't either.
raised.
I'm with you there.
So wild caught, because all the nutrients that the fish need are out in the water when they pen them in. Do you know that when they're farm raising the salmon, they got to go through and yank out the dead ones?
Yeah.
And if you hold up wild caught salmon to farm raised, you will see a major color difference. Why do you think that color difference is there?
Absolutely, because they're not getting the right nutrients. In fact, they add color to those salmon that are farm raised. So,
wow. Okay. So let's not bash the farm raising industry. Let's stay on the wild caught. Wild caught will get, in fact, the salmon that go upstream and what have you. And it's like chickens that are, they're free range. The only way to get that omega-3 even from the salmon is if they're wild, because they eat things that have omega-3 in them, and then it goes into their flesh. They don't produce omega-3 on their own. They have to eat it, apparently. At least that's what I've always understood. So let's talk about that. Wild-caught salmon. We may never come back to wild-caught shrimp or whatever you're eating out there from the water, okay? Whether it be fresh water or it be salt water or it be brackish water. It be water. Take it from the wild. But we'll probably never come back to the shrimp. So let's talk about that too. If you eat the cartilage, so let's talk about the grilled shrimp. You do like 3 minutes on the grill each side. And I put a little salt and I squirt lemon on those shrimp too when I'm grilling them. And then we use that ghee, that clarified butter with a little garlic and more lemon. And Marcus and his wife showed us, because they said when they went to Asia, especially, was it Hong Kong, Marcus?
Yeah, and even before that in New York, dealing with some people from China, they taught us head to tail. You eat that whole shrimp, shell and all.
So I get the Hawaiian shrimp over here at a local place in Dana Point, and I started eating. When Marcus told me this, folks, I would strip the legs off and I would eat the shell, but I would stop at the tail. But lately, I'm starting to chew on some of that tail too, especially if it's grilled for a while. They have this butterflied shrimp that's it's a sweet and garlicky Hawaiian style, Polynesian. Ooh, surf and sea or sea and surf. Always flip that. So good there if you get a chance to go there. There's a couple locations. There's multiple.
We will be going.
Yeah, but you can. Yeah, that's right. But you can eat that tail. Right. But especially the casing, there's got to be a lot of nutrients, minerals in there, and vitamins in the cartilage. And it's easier. Honestly, it's crunchy. Yeah. And you eat less probably because you're eating the cartilage.
I think so. You're probably holding off the hunger a little bit because you're working a little harder to digest that. And that's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. And I'm with you. Eat head to tail. I think that sometimes in this country, we tend to maybe poo-poo some of that stuff or just kind of look down our nose at it. But honestly, that's kind of what we've always done throughout time, right? As humans, you optimize every bite of food that you can and take in all those nutrients. And a lot of times you miss out on it. If you're peeling off those shells or you're discarding a lot of stuff, you're losing out on some nutrients.
Brother, wild caught, eat the casing. I don't know what we call it.
Eat it all. Eat the shells, man. Eat the shells. Don't try it on turtles, though. That doesn't work the same.
I'm not going to. You're going to give us a recap, or you want me to?
You go ahead. Hit us with the recap this time.
Okay, there you go. So you've got, what did we discuss? How that federal pension over time might actually not quite do it, and Social Security. So what is your enemy? Inflation. And if you have retirement savings that is invested, then that very well can be the key to allow you years from now to have enough money to pull out and adjust, even if you don't need the retirement savings now. You might need it in the future to adjust for inflation.
Excellent. And eat the nutrients, all of them, man. Get that shell in there on that wild-caught shrimp. That's a good idea. Great health tip. Good advice, too, right? We talked about that earlier. Can't outrun a bad diet. You're not going to outrun inflation on your own. So good stuff today, Chuck. Thank you very much for your time. Can we just go ahead and put a bow on it here?
There you go.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, again for tuning in. This is the CD Financial Podcast, CD Financial, where health meets wealth. I am Marcus C, as always. That is Chuck D, the man with the plan. We look forward to seeing you next time. Y'all be good.
CD Financial, where health meets wealth.